There's a lot of money being invested right now nationwide in mental health or social emotional learning or making sure that our children are in a good mental space to be successful. And I have no qualms with that. I think that is necessary because at the end of the day, if you're not mentally secure, if you're not mentally safe, if you're not able to manage your emotions, especially after what we've all been through over the past 3 years with the pandemic, with the proliferation of violence in our communities, police brutality, all these things. If we're not able to navigate through that space, it's very hard for children to be successful in schools. Because often we think that it's only us adults who are going through it. Our kids are going through it also. They're consuming social media. They're watching TV. They're hearing us adults talk about all the problems in the world. But then outside of the problems of the world, what's happening in our households as well? If we're not secure financially, if we're going through, issues and crises when it comes to housing and just food insecurities, all these things that are plaguing, certain communities and a lot of communities, let's be honest here, especially Black and brown communities. If we're not addressing those things, and especially how it's impacting our children, yeah, we have a big problem. They're not gonna be able to function the way they need to function in schools. But I'm gonna throw one thing else out there. Yes, I'm in agreement with all the monies, and there's millions, if not billions of dollars being pushed into mental health services and making sure that we're addressing the emotional needs of our children. But if you can't read, if a child can't read, that's a much bigger issue that we're not addressing. Again, mental health is necessary. Okay, I'm not arguing against that. But I can tell you right now, as a person who it took a while to master reading, I wasn't a proficient reader, or even honestly a reader, until I was about 8 or 9 years old, where I started to be like, okay, I can actually read. And I'll tell you right now, as someone who has dyslexia and who struggled to master his stuttering, reading is still a challenge for me as an adult. But I can read enough to get through a bachelor's degree and a master's degree, and hopefully one day a doctoral degree, but I can read. Right now, the vast majority of our children, that percentage ranges in some communities as high as 80%, and to at least above 50% of our kids around the country are leaving schools, especially in urban settings, functionally illiterate. They can maneuver through certain words, but they cannot read, nonfiction text and be able to pull out of it meaning, true meaning and understanding. If our kids can't read, and now they're going from 3rd grade to 4th grade and 5th grade into middle school and high school and keep pushing forward, and they can't read, what does that do to their psyche? What does that do to their mental health? Because in schools, we're asking our children to perform. But if they're not able to perform, and we're not really focusing on giving them those skills, guess what's gonna happen? You will have behavioral issues. I've had students in my classroom, as soon as you say read something or we're reading something, behavior goes out the window. Good behavior goes out the window. They're gonna act up to do whatever it takes to distract from the fact that they can't read, or they're scared about what's gonna happen when they're called on to read. Or even if they're just reading on their own, getting through the material and they can't get through it, okay, that does something to you emotionally. I know what it did to me when I was 8 and 9 years old, and I was like, I'm sitting here and I don't know what's happening here. I know what it did to me when I got to middle school and high school, and I knew it took me much longer to get through texts. Because my B's and D's would go backwards, and my brain would skip past entire words and sentences, and I was able to survive that. But not every child is going to be able to survive that, But again, I still have a crisis of reading till this day. And some of you might be like, wait a minute, but you're right, you do it. Yeah, but still, it's a reality. So what does that mean for our children? So I'm saying all this to say, I want us to find a way to take some of all those billions of dollars or millions of dollars and put effective reading coaches and reading programs in our early grades. They have reading recovery programs in our later grades, because we have adults who come into the real world who cannot read. They're not literate. Yeah? They're not literate. So that is causing a lot of problems. What kind of jobs can you get if you're not literate? Not the higher paying jobs. You know, yes, you might get a job that's they might be able to get jobs that require manual labor that pays really well, but those jobs also have risk attached to it. You get physically hurt, you can't work anymore. You know, I've had students of mine and parents who said, listen, my child's gonna be good. When they get out, they're gonna join me doing construction. I make $60, $70 an hour until you break your leg, until you bust out your back. And then guess what now? You're on disability and you can't work. But if you're able to read, and I'm saying reading as a foundation for everything else, because then you can work towards other certifications. You can get through material. You can build up skills. You can look into the tech industry. You can look into medical industry and all these different spaces and be able to really conquer in life. Yes, we need to put money into mental health services. Yes, we do. We definitely do. But we also need to put a lot of money into literacy. Because if we don't do that soon, I mean, listen, watch the news now. You know, right now, literacy-wise, nationwide, the last time the scores were this low was 1990. Was the last time the scores were this low? 1990. That is over 30 years ago. So we've moved backwards. With all the technology and all the advances in society right now, we're moving backwards in literacy. But guess who's getting infected the most? Black and brown children. You know, children that are in urban settings, in poor communities. So what does that mean for their future? I'm gonna close out this video with this one thought. I remember reading that research was being done on the potential of needing more prisons based on third grade literacy scores. Look it up. Third grade literacy scores as the basis of whether or not, as the basis of what's the potential numbers of prisons that need to be built, prison beds that will be required to house criminals. It didn't make sense to me. Because in the third grade, if you're not at grade level and staying at grade level beyond third grade, the opportunities for you in society starts to diminish. And if you can't function as part of regular society, you know, jobs in those spaces, then guess what you end up doing? You go into the alternative economy, which is usually crime. You know, and you're doing this by necessity. Kids are doing this by necessity. These adults are doing it by necessity, and they end up getting locked up and not feeding into a whole nother economy. So think about that. Mental health, literacy. We need mental health services, but we need literacy. Literacy coaching, literacy teaching. Teachers across the country need to learn how to become instructors of literacy throughout all content, so we get our kids in the right position. All right, y'all. Have an amazing day, and I'll talk to you later. Peace.